Hale. It is Mojo Monday, my friend. How are you?
I'm doing well. Another installment of our favorite episode, or favorite thing to do, I should say, every single week.
Yeah, I'm sitting there thinking back. I think we're almost on like episode 100.
We're
Uh,
close.
did you even think we'd still be doing this 100 episodes later when we started?
No, probably not. I
Uh,
thought, man, that's a novel idea. We should do Mojo Mondays. Let's give everybody a boost. But
yeah,
you know what? Givers get, and here we are. I feel like we walk away with as much value as anybody, just having a sincere conversation around things that matter.
absolutely. And maybe that's the lesson is uh, just start, let it evolve, and over time, it's going to take on a life of its own. And I honestly thought we'd run out of content like 50 episodes ago. And here we are. We've yet to ever run out of content. More importantly, it's just fun stuff to talk about. So today we're still in the Algebra of Happiness by Scott Galloway, which I think is an awesome book. But there's a conversation we want to craft this morning around advocating. And he tells a story in the book around an older man that had, really advocated for him when he was a young guy and helped him learn kind of business and investing and understanding money. And he was a son of a single mother, and what an impact that had on his life. I know you talked in previous Mojos about a story. Why don't you just tell that story and then we can kind of dive into this?
Yeah. So one thing's for sure, most people that succeed at a high level have something to prove. There's something they're out to, they wake up with a chip or some need or motive. And the flip side of that, or the shadow side, is there's probably somebody in this world that was a key advocate with a voice at the right time that inspired and ignited something in them that held space in their heart and mind that said, I am worthy. I can do this. And I've had a few people in my life step in and, for a brief period of time, but just long enough to plant that positive seed of potential that made me feel like I had capacity and potential. And the one that I think you're referring to is when I was 10, I was visiting my grandparents who lived in Venezuela. And my grandmother had bad arthritis, and my grandfather would take her down into this hot area that had hot springs a few hours outside the city of Caracas. And I was visiting and I went with them, and they gave me a few bolivars, which is their currency, and sent me down to the hot spring pool one afternoon just to probably get a break from a 10-year-old kid. And while I was there, I bought a soda and some crackers, and I was sitting by the pool, and I was an avid swimmer at 10. And these four locals, kids came running through the woods and down this hill and kind of popped out through the mango bushes and jumped into the pool. 1, 2, 3, 4, 3 came back up, one didn't. And I'll keep the story brief. I quickly realized at 10 years old that the fourth kid was not a swimmer, or for some reason cramped or couldn't swim. And I didn't feel capable of helping him. And there was another adult couple there, unrelated to the four boys, I guess just tourists who were there at the resort, and they froze at poolside when they went to try to help him. And without thinking, I jumped in the pool and saved this kid, and nearly drowned me in the process because I had no training. And I did all the things you're not supposed to do to save a drowning victim, like dive underwater, grab their legs, and he's pulling my hair out and I'm almost drowning myself. But long story short, I somehow got him to the edge of the pool where the adult pulled him out. I went back to my grandmother and grandfather's cabana where we were staying, and I said, you're not going to believe what happened. And my grandfather was a bit dismissive, like, yeah, whatever. And my grandmother paused and got tears in her eyes and grabbed me by the cheeks and looked me square in the eyes and said, you're a gift from God, and you have great things coming, like you have a huge purpose in this world. And that's obvious and evident in what just happened. And as a 10-year-old, man, you just want validation, that you're okay and capable. And I never forgot it, and I never will forget it. It was the first time, I think, in my life where I felt maybe I have something and maybe I can be something. And so there you go. That's the story of my first, heartfelt moment of advocacy that kind of changed the way I saw myself.
Well, it creates a paradigm shift, right? When
Yeah.
somebody lends you their belief because you don't have it yourself yet, it creates a paradigm shift inside of us, right? And I think
Yeah.
that's really what advocacy is. And in our world, obviously we're in the real estate industry, so you could advocate for other agents, or you could advocate for consumers that are buying and selling real estate. There's so many different things you can advocate for. Yet we talk about all the time, like, Rick, you're the average of the 3 to 5 people you spend the most time with, right? Or we call it the tribe. And I do think those concepts are really powerful. Yet I think advocation's more of a one-on-one scenario, meaning if I have a belief, I believe in you and I lend you my belief because you don't believe it yet, I have to do that in a one-on-one relationship. And then
Mhm.
you got to look me in the eye and go, okay, I can do this. And or
Right.
vice versa, right? Like, you've lent me some of your beliefs over the years. And um I just think that's what real advocacy is lending beliefs and standing for somebody's greatness, and helping them move to that next phase of life, right?
Yeah. And like you said, the first step's the hardest in any endeavor. You've said it over and over. And that advocacy, or that moment of advocacy or belief, maybe the prompt that pushes you to the first step that allows for a second and third. And as I think through advocates in my life, not all of them were just like peer group or account, like just family or local. It doesn't. I don't think the source of advocacy matters as much as the integrity of the source. And so for some of us who don't have a natural environment, like, I was blessed to have a grandmother that just had that moment with me that was incredible. And I've lost her since, so it's extra special. But I've also had coaches and, role models at work, like you said, that as long as the source is valid, the source itself is irrelevant. And you can pay for it, like paid advocacy. As long as you trust and believe that they're telling you, their truth, and you buy it, then you're going to take action on it.
Well, even if you pay, like, let's say you pay for a coach, you can tell the heart of your coach. Meaning, are they just going through a script telling you what? Oh, tell me your numbers this week or whatever, or are they in it to win it with you? And you can feel it, right? It's
Yeah.
advocacy. You can really feel. You can feel somebody's heart, But as we're breaking this down, this book talks about the algebra of happiness, right? And it says it's the notes on the pursuit of success, love, and meaning. And you realize that we can all go pursue success, but at some point in time, the script flips on us in life, and we want to have meaning to who we are. We want to have significance to who we are, and you can't get that from just success most times. It turns into, what's your legacy? It turns into, how are you paying it forward? It turns into, how many people have you taken with you along the journey that made it a
Right.
rich experience, instead of just you standing alone creating that level of success, right?
Yeah. And some of this goes back to the concept of lifters and leaners.
Yeah.
Who are the lifters in your world that make you better because of they're in your presence, just their character, their culture. You don't want to let them down, just even as a peer, and then there's leaners, people that take energy and are constantly, draining and dragging. And so take, I guess, assess inventory of who's in your world and what impact they're having. And then the flip side of that coin is, what role are you playing in the lives of other people? And how are you creating relational currency? Not because you want to cash a check, that's transactional relationships where, you invest time and energy because there's a return that's monetized or quantifiable. But the cool is when you give in a disproportionate way, the truth is you're going to get paid back. Like, reality is reality, and the law of reciprocity and contribution are alive. And that space is so authentic. And back to your point, that's how that because your heart tells you and your head tells you this person's all about transactional returns. And those are the people, if that's a season, that's a season, but that's not the long-term game we're talking about when it comes to true advocates.
I actually had this conversation this week, Rick. Like, there are leaders out there that they lead transactionally. And
Mhm.
if you're in their world, You're there for the transaction. That's what matters. Sometimes it's okay because there's clarity around that, and our relationship is transactional. Yet I could use the word advocate, but I think it would get misconstrued here. I would make a case that great organizations can't be built that way. I think great organizations have to be built around people, communities, and relationships. And you can't do that just transactionally. That doesn't mean we don't stand for success and greatness, but there's still a relational element that has to be there for a great
Yeah.
organization or a great team or a great friendship or anything like that.
Yeah, it's got to be more than the money. I mean, that's for longevity and for, a sincere legacy as a leader, it's relational and it's not transactional. And I heard this once that people don't quit companies, they quit people, which tells me that they're in it, the people that quit and the people that aren't connecting, it's obviously a transactional relationship that went bankrupt. And so you either keep putting money on the meter so that you're bringing value, and you have to do your disproportionate part, or the relationship becomes transactional. And it's got to be an investment that's from the heart. And it doesn't mean you hire the wrong people or keep the wrong people for the wrong roles. You have to make difficult decisions as leaders, and the right people are worth the investment, well above and beyond just what you can do for me.
Yeah. So Rick, we were talking like, what's the challenge? We always end with a challenge, right? So I think the challenge really here is sit down and think about your life and who were those key roles, those role models, those advocates, like your grandmother was for you. And I would just challenge you. Hopefully, they're still alive, right? And if they're
Yeah.
not, you can send the wishes up, but share gratitude. Share some praise and thank you and gratitude for the role they played in your life. And then going forward, what do you think we should do?
I think the answer is assess your capacity to be a role model and an advocate for someone else, and then go find or make sure that you're giving your gifts freely. I mean, that's what makes the world a better place. There's a reciprocity that'll show up, but do it because your heart says do it. And so maybe in the next 6 months, if you're not a cheerleader for someone strategically and specifically, figure out who that person is, or that tribe, or that group, or maybe it's a new agent in your office or a new employee, or someone in your social sphere that just needs a leg up. It's Zig Ziglar once said, how do you know when someone needs encouragement and support? And his answer is they're breathing. And so, be that person, because deep down, I think we all really want to be that person. And the only reason some of us are coming up short is that awareness. It's just awareness that there's opportunity and running past it, for the sake of being busy. So take a deep breath and be a little less busy and a little more thoughtful about those that have advocated, and then be an advocate for someone that needs you.
Yeah, I want to end on this. Have you ever heard the analogy between the reservoir and the river? And some people they view their life where they're a reservoir and they're kind of collecting everything, but the water's fixed and it's stagnant, and it's just sitting there like a pond, right? Where sometimes a river flows through us, but if you're a great advocate, your life looks like a river of people that you just made an incredible difference on, and they're on down the river in their life right now. But the reality it's a beautiful flowing uh, body of water that just changes the world, right?
Yeah, I mean, your legacy lies in the relationships you build and support. So, yeah, just be consciously aware, and don't be a passive bystander and let life go by. Make sure you're paddling hard and making your difference.
Rick, it is Mojo Monday, sir.
Loved it. Have a great one, guys.